Okay, this is a these are a couple of examples in how to solve a quadratic by completing the square. So let's take a look. And the very first thing that we want to do is we want to clear the third term off of the left side, meaning we're going to clear a position. We're going to put our own number in there. And the reason that we want to put our own number in there is because we're going to create a perfect square trinomial. So this is going to be a trinomial that's actually going to be able to be factored into two matching factors. So that's the goal, to create our own trinomial so that when we factor it, it is going to be factored into two matching binomials. So here's what we do. We take the middle term. By the way, we do need to make sure that there's nothing right here, right? There's nothing sitting there. There's no coefficient other than 1 on the leading term. Once we see that, we're going to take the middle term and we're going to take half of it. Okay, so we're going to take half of the middle term. Then we're going to square it. Square that. So half of the middle term is going to be a 4. Squaring it will be a 16. So the number that we're going to add to both sides, pardon me, I didn't leave myself a little blank here. We're going to add 16 to both sides. Now, let's see what that's going to do for us. That's going to be x squared plus 16, plus 8x plus 16, I'm getting ahead of myself, equals 11. Now what we have then is we have a perfect square trinomial, and when we factor it, you'll notice that this is what's going to happen. We're going to have matching factors exactly. Matching factors. Well, we wanted matching factors so that we could consolidate them into that. Why would we want to consolidate them? Well, because now we're going to use what the last video talked about, which is the square root property. So we're going to now that the x is in one location being squared, we're going to take the square root of both sides. That's going to free up the x, which is, again, the reason we want to take the square root is because we want to get the x exposed. And so now all we have to do is go ahead and finish up isolating the x. So we get negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 11. And we know that the plus or minus has to be there because we ourselves took the square root of both sides. So there are the two answers. Negative 4 plus square root of 11, negative 4 minus square root of 11. Let's take a look at one more example. Now on this one, we're going to clear the third position, but then we're going to notice something else about the equation, and that is that there's a leading coefficient that is different than 1. In other words, it's not 1. But when I see this right here in front of the x squared, I know I need to eliminate it before I finish completing the square. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. Whatever is there at that position, I'm going to eliminate it by dividing both sides by that number. So then we get this. Now, don't panic. We do have a fraction for the middle term, but it's going to be okay. You're going to find that it's almost just as easy as the previous problem that we did. Now, I'm going to go ahead and give myself a position here and a position here. If I add the same thing to both sides in just a minute. Again, I make sure that the front is clean, and now I'm ready to take half. Half of 5 halves. The easiest way to get that is just to multiply by half. Half of something is taking half of it. So that's going to give me 5/4. Well, then I'm going to square the 5/4, and I notice I'm not needing any kind of fancy calculator. I just need to write the squared at the top and the squared at the bottom. It's really simple. Oops, it looks like 251, and it's not what I have. So okay, so what we have here is we have next something that we need to factor. Now remember, on this problem before, I'm going to bring this back to your memory. When I had this right here, the way that I got, well, there it is here, the way that I got the 4 here and the 4 here is I took the square root of the 16, right, to factor it. I took the square root. Same thing here. The way that I'm going to get this number and this number is taking the square root of this one. So let's take a look at what we get. We have x and x. I'm factoring the trinomial. We have a minus and a minus. That's because of that right there. This right here tells me that they'll both be matching. The plus does. So what am I going to have here? I'm going to have a 5 over 4. I take the square root, right? 5 over 4. It's what it was before. It's not a big deal. Now let's take a look at the right-hand side, and I really do want to make this 1 and 9/16, because that 1 and 9/16 plus 3 is going to be easy to add in my head, make that 4 and 9/16. Now I can consolidate, and again, let's just not get all anxious about the fractions. I am going to go ahead and make this into an improper fraction, which will be 73/16, right? 4 times 16 plus 9, that's how I do that. Now I'm ready to take the square root of both sides. The square root property, so I have x minus 5/4 is equal to, now I'm going to remember that that's the same as this, the square root of 73 over the square root of 16. Well, the square root of 73 is the square root of 73, but 16 cleans off to that. Now, here we go. I'm just going to add the 5/4 to both sides, and I'm finished solving for x. I have 5/4 plus or minus the square root of 73 over 4. And there are my two answers. One of them's a positive, one of them's a negative. Okay? So if you just take it slowly, the fractions don't have to stump you. I hope this helped. Thanks for listening.